we tell every seller, don't care if you're selling a house, a car, or a can of soup at the store on the shelf. If it doesn't sell, you put it on sale. If it doesn't sell, it becomes manager special. If it doesn't sell, buy one, get one. Until you get it to sell, you move the price. And everything will sell for the right price.
Hey there, everyone. Dave Barlow here with the gang from Sell for 1%. We got Rich Ciccone. Always had to mess with your name a little bit, Rich, since my wife
It's
says
okay.
I'm a wannabe Italian. And we got
Yeah, well, we
the
have your application, but we haven't approved it yet.
yeah, well, after 39 years of being in the family, I doubt my application's been lost several times. We got Jay Marinsky, who, what did you find out? You're 50% or 51% Italian?
50% on the nose, which allows me to join the American Italian Club.
Oh,
So
Then you got to be
wow.
invited.
That's
I've been
cool.
invited. You think they aren't inviting me?
They have your application.
It's being considered.
Yeah, yeah. And we have Jada Bomb here this morning, who apparently can't get his camera to work. So we've got a beautiful
I'm sick as a
picture.
dog.
Sick as a dog.
Yes, I'm
Uh,
sick, but I'm here
that's an old
working through it
time
all.
reference, isn't it? Sick as a dog. I always,
I'm dying, but I'm here.
I always have to give credit when I use one of my mom or dad's or grandparents. My grandma used to say, "Sick as a dog." So you just came by it naturally. All right, Rich, enough of this tomfoolery. We are here on Wednesday, July 23rd already. The month is flying by. The Columbus numbers just came out here this morning. One of the interesting things that I saw was that for the June numbers, that sales were up 11% in June, and prices was up like 7% year over year. We're up to like 395 was the average sales price in June.
Holy
And
crap.
the overall year to date was, I think, 3.8% or something like that. So the market's looking somewhat healthy. What are you guys seeing in the world of the mortgages?
Well, that's interesting. Is that year over year numbers? Is that what we're talking about there with those?
The one was month over month. The price was up, like I said, 7%, 8%. Year over year prices are up 3.8%.
I see. Yeah, I mean, just what we've said all along is that Columbus is a desirable market, and I don't see, even with many areas of the country, like in Florida, our branch that we have in Florida is suffering, and things are tough down there. For you, you see it in the news all the time. But Columbus just keeps moving along, and we've got people moving here every day. Housing seems to be very strong here. In terms of interest rates, the Fed is meeting next week. Most analysts do not feel they will do anything with interest rates next week. It will be a big surprise if they do. And if they did make a move on interest rates next week, that would be huge. That would be market moving, but no one really anticipates that. Now, when it comes to the meeting after that, which would be September, the general consensus is we're right about 50% that we may get a rate decrease in September. And most analysts feel if they do it in September, they'll continue to do it in November and December, I think, of the next two meetings. So it's like going to the casino and putting it on red or black if you want to decide to hold on and wait for interest rates to go down or not. We're seeing a little bit more talk about that. Of course, everyone probably sees the arguments that Mr. Trump and Mr. Powell are having in the news all the time. He's the worst Fed president in the world, according to Trump, and should just resign. There is really not a whole lot of change. The market has absorbed these mid to high six interest rates, and the people that want to buy are buying, as you can see from your numbers that you said earlier. And we're just a 50% chance, maybe by the end of the year, we're going to see some movement.
Yeah, closed sales in June 2025, 2,951 houses sold in June. 2024 last year in June, 2,656 houses. So we
Wow.
had 11.1% increase in home sales in June. We did have a decrease in contracts being written. So that'll be coming up here in July and August for closing. So we'll see how that impacts. Home prices in June from 2024 to June of 2025 was an increase of 3.6% year over year, or year to date, I should say, from January 1st through June 30th. We've seen appreciation in the entire Columbus MLS of 3.4%. So, we're seeing things up. Average sales price in June was $398,000. So that's one of the reasons why our sell for 1% model works so well. Just 13 years ago, back in 2012, at the bottom of the foreclosure crisis, the average sales price here in Columbus was around $155,000. And so we've gone in 13 years from 155 to 398,000. I mean, that's more than doubled, not quite triple. We got to get the 450 to be a triple there, but that's pretty crazy, those numbers.
It's totally normal.
Totally normal. There
I
you
used to be able to buy a gumball for a nickel.
Well, if you go over to
Well,
Meyer, I think you can still get a gumball for a nickel, and you can ride Lucy the horse for a nickel. So,
what,
some things have stayed the
Jamie, I
same.
used to be able to buy one for a penny, just for reference there.
My recent
So-
kind
Yeah.
of anecdotal evidence of kind of what's going on in the market, or at least how I relate to it, is these open houses. It's like, I have a listing up on the market and it might not get showings for 5 days. Then I have an open house and 8 people come through. It's like, well, those 8 people aren't as serious. Maybe they've just started looking, but it's like, 7 showings all at once at an open house on Sunday when we can't get people in the door. And I think it just kind of speaks to a buyer's position in the market. And buyer's position is comfortable. We want what we want if we're going to spend this money. So that's kind of my take. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I have nothing to quantify this with, but I've been wondering how much of that is that buyers don't want to sign these new buyer broker agreements to get a showing. And so they see the open house and they come on out. I don't know. It's just pure speculation.
Right. It's interesting.
I think you are on something there, Jada Bomb. You and I have talked that post NAR settlement, and it's becoming more and more that we see a property get requested for a showing, and then an hour or two later, or just before the showing, it's canceled. We've not seen that number of cancellations last year or the year before. And again, nothing to quantify. In theory, the thought is that the buyer agent is being contacted. Hey, we want to go see 123 ABC Street. Client or the agent does the showing.
Likely a Zillow lead.
Yeah, they get the showing request, and then they send over the contract that you agree to pay me 3% if I show you this house and you like it. And the buyer's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. So yeah, I think maybe there's something definitely to both your theories, that we're seeing more people show up to open houses and we're seeing more cancellations. And I think that does have a lot to do with what's going on with contracts and buyer agents.
The old Occam's razor and keep it simple, stupid method of speculation. I think that there is confluence there with private showings being canceled ahead of time and open houses more busy. I think that there probably is some correlation, and we're getting close to it here. I know a lot of leads that other brokerages have. They simply buy Zillow leads and they sell those back to their agents that will then pay a fee if they close them back to the brokerage. But that Zillow lead isn't necessarily vetted much more than by Zillow. So they might not be pre-approved, probably aren't. I see a lot of issues on the front end, and the private showings being canceled is a weird one, at least the frequency of it.
Right. And like I say, we're seeing a whole bunch more of them. I guess it might also be I'm a little more tuned into it because of everything going on in the market, but I just don't remember last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that the number of cancellations that are coming through, it seems a little odd.
Mhm.
And so anyways, Jada Bomb on the listing side, the one thing, and we talked about this a little prior to getting on camera here, this is the time of year in July that we tend to see a slowdown of buyers looking. And the correlation being is that we have fewer showings, but it seems like the people who are looking are much more serious. So where it normally takes us around 8 showings on average to generate an offer, right now it's like 5 or 6. So fewer showings, but buyers are a little more serious.
The market is very interesting right now because, like, the numbers you're reading sound great, and that's looking back into June. The May numbers were like 0.01%, or what? No, was it 0.7% year over year growth? I mean, it was slowed down big time.
Yeah.
And when I'm in listings, I'm telling sellers like, hey, right now, because in my listing packet, I've got a chart talks about, prices were up like 9%. Well, that was coming in beginning of the year, and it was all the entire state of Ohio. Maybe it was 6%, and sales were up 9. Today, right now, they're up about 3 to 4% on price. When I looked yesterday, we were over. Let me pull it up now. We were over 5,200 active listings in the MLS, and I'm
Yeah.
doing it right now. We are today at 5,269 listings. So we're pushing up towards 5,300 now. This back in the beginning of the year, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but my feeling is like we were down around like 3,000, maybe 2,500. I mean, it was low. And, this has been happening in places like Florida, the Sunbelt states, Arizona, Colorado, where they were beginning of the year, they were at pre-COVID inventory levels. And in Columbus, we were not to those levels until we got to April. And then April and May kind of masked it a little bit because and I have a lot of sellers that think that, oh, well, the best time to sell is the summertime. That's not true. The best time to be a seller is April and May. And that's because you have a huge increase in showings in that time period. I show sellers this when I meet with them too. It's like, here's the yearly trends for number of showings, the velocity of showings coming in. And April and May are sky high. And this year has been stronger than the last 3 4 years. We've had more showings overall in Ohio this year than we've had the last 3 4 years. So, I mean, the buyer demand is not really weakened, but they've got a lot more to choose from. The last time I
Right.
saw inventory at 5,200 plus was going to be back in 2017. And so all of a sudden, Columbus has got a bunch of homes for sale. Buyers can be picky. Buyers feel like they have way more power. Buyers do have more power because they have more to choose from, but prices have not unwound. Prices are still going up, whether it's 3% or 4% or 6% beginning of the year. It's still a pretty strong seller's market. We're still under 3 months supply, so there's still a shortage of inventory, that we're not really accustomed to, even though it's starting to go more towards the buyer side. But sellers can still kind of command, premium. Now, if sellers are out of their minds and they're asking way too much money, yeah, you're going to sit because you got more competition. And if those people need to sell, they're going to be priced more aggressively. And, the best priced homes, they sell the quickest. Something else we tell every seller, don't care if you're selling a house, a car, or a can of soup at the store on the shelf. If it doesn't sell, you put it on sale. If it doesn't sell, it becomes manager special. If it doesn't sell, buy one, get one. Until you get it to sell, you move the price. And everything will sell for the right price. And so that becomes part of the art form. What I am seeing in the whole metro area is the days on market is starting to skew up in a way that we have not seen in a while. where, like I'm looking at condos in Powell earlier, checking out one of Jamie's properties, and it's like, in this price point, they're taking 60 plus days. And I think that most sellers have the impression that, well, homes in my neighborhood sell in 3 days or 3 hours. That's not really the case anymore. You're still going to get top dollar. Again, prices have not come down, they've not unwound, but it's taking a little bit longer to find a buyer right now. And
Right.
if, all of a sudden you don't sell in the first week, oh, can we do an open house? Can we do this? Can we do that? And it's like, just relax. If you want to slash price, we can do that and it will sell. But, just let it come to you a little bit. There's no reason to panic. The death of the real estate market is greatly exaggerated. There's a lot of negativity in the news between politics and everything else. It's really not that bad of a market. It's becoming more balanced, which is good for everybody. We need a healthy market. So you don't want this savage bidding war market where buyers can't buy anything and they get frustrated and drop out. I think it's a sign of the market becoming healthy and stabilizing. And it's a good time as a seller to cash out before it does unwind, if it does.
It shan't. Jamie, anything you want to offer on the buyer side?
No, not really. I think Jason wrapped it up pretty well. If you're a buyer, you have a little more to pick from your wants versus needs list as compared to COVID era. You need to get the offer in tonight or you ain't buying it. Those days are gone. And so I think it's nice. Buyers have more selection. They can be more patient. They can think things over a bit. And like we're seeing in the market, I mean, they aren't building enough houses. I think that's probably pretty key in a lot of this. They simply aren't building enough houses. So good time to buy if you're ready to buy a home and start the journey on equity in your home.
Rich, I don't know if you mentioned what you're seeing rate wise, mid sixes thereabouts for the right
Yeah,
combination.
that's kind of where we are in most scenarios. Again, loan to value, credit scores, all that matters.
Well, we'll sit tight and wait and see if the browbeating by President Trump on Jerry will
Uncle Jerry.
have any impact on the rates. He's not the one that actually, I mean, he's the spokes guy. But there are other Fed governors that can put pressure on him to lower rates as well. And so I guess, we'll just have to sit tight and see what the consensus of the different Fed chairs across the country are coming up with, and if they want to make a move or not and surprise the market altogether. So
It would be a big surprise if we get one next week, but September is looking 50-50.
I saw this story. I'd be curious what you and Rich both think. They were saying that even if they were to, there was some video about how Trump is, trying to get like a 300 basis point drop and have, the Fed drop it to like, 1.5% or something. And they were talking about what happens if that were to happen. And it mentioned how like on these yield curves that they have, that like the 10-year T notes may actually go up if the market doesn't think that that's healthy or sustainable. And this particular video is saying really the only way you're going to get like mortgage rates and something like that to come down big time would be if you did quantitative easing, and that cutting
now,
the rate
Rich
basically
is,
is.
That's really what drove the rates down was quantitative easing all through the 2010s and up through about the 2022, and lowering rates is not in and of itself, if the Fed funds rate, people have to realize the Fed fund rate is the overnight lending rate to banks. That's all they're lowering. They're not doing anything to mortgages when they lower or
right,
raise rates.
right.
They are just lowering the overnight lending rate between one bank and another, which then drives everything throughout the system to some extent, and mortgages get to be affected at some point. But as we've seen in recent rate increases and decreases, mortgage rates are kind of stuck right here. The thing that really makes them go down is the commitment by the Fed to really drive down mortgage rates by buying mortgage-backed securities. That's what quantitative easing is that the Fed actually buys the mortgage-backed securities that are being written. So yeah, I agree with you, Jason. That is definitely, it's not just a be all and end all if they raise or lower rates at any given point.
All right, fellas. Well, thank you for the conversation. We have overstayed our time as we normally do. A lot of information, a lot of good information. If you do like the conversations, please like and subscribe, and be sure to tell your friends and family and neighbors about us. If you're thinking about buying a home, call Jay Marinsky. Selling a home, talk to Jay DeBomb. If you have a complaint, you can call me and leave a message, and I'll be sure to get back to you. And Rich, if you're looking at getting a mortgage, is the man to talk to with all the insight and the skinny of what's happening out there. We appreciate you guys' time, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have yourself a great week.
Thanks for having me, guys.